Please be seated. Jurors, as I'm sure you gathered, that the jury instruction we worked on was a fluid project, kind of tweaked it all the way up, including when I was reading it to you, you saw I had to change one of those subsections. I should say over the break, we talked with parties, and there's going to be a modification to the abuse of corpse jury instruction. The littering aspect will not be part of it. It's just one theory that the state is alleging happened, so I'm going to reread that to you just so there's no confusion. Any person who commits the offense of abuse of a corpse is guilty of a crime. For you to find the defendant guilty of this offense, the state must have proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following essential elements. 1, that the defendant physically mistreated the corpse in a manner offensive to the sensibilities of an ordinary person. And 2, that the defendant acted without legal privilege. And 3, that the defendant acted knowingly. In deciding whether the act was offensive to the sensibilities of an ordinary person, the jury must avoid subjective, personal, and private views and evaluate the sensibilities of a hypothetical average adult person, applying the collective view of the adult community as a whole. Ordinary person means a person of ordinary care and diligence in relation to a particular thing. Legal privilege means a particular or peculiar benefit or advantage created by law. A person acts knowingly with respect to the nature of circumstances surrounding the result of his or her conduct when the person is aware of the nature of the conduct, that the circumstances exist, or that the conduct is reasonably certain to cause the result. The requirement of knowledge is also established if it is shown that the defendant acted intentionally. A person acts intentionally with respect to the nature or result of his or her conduct when it is the person's conscious objective or desire to engage in the conduct or cause of the result. Again, for the record, this is something that the state has agreed to. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's something that the defense has agreed to. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Remember, what is said in closing arguments is not evidence. You have already heard and seen all the evidence in this case that you may properly consider. During the closing arguments, the parties may mention points of law or refer to these instructions that the court has given. However, the law that you must follow in reaching your verdict is the law that the court has given you in these final instructions. If there is any difference between what the parties say about the law and what the court has said in these final instructions, you must follow the court's instructions. With that, since you've already heard all the evidence in the case, and your notes are to help you in understanding the evidence, at this point, you must all put your notepads under your chair. You're not allowed to take notes during closing argument because it's not evidence. But you may refer to your notes in your stay ready to close.
Yes, Your Honor.
DVD, prosecution laptop.
Prosecution laptop. What's in the bags is a matter of perspective. For one person in the courtroom, was contained in Exhibit 138-6, found on the banks of the Tennessee River in Hamilton County, was an inconvenience. Something that needed to be gotten rid of, discarded like a piece of trash. Something that you don't care about. But to other people in the courtroom whom you've heard from today, it's something, and not today, but over the course of this week, something to be cherished, something precious, something that you'd be willing to go to the ends of the earth to find and bring home safe. What's in the bag? Jasmine Pace. The court has instructed you on the law And this case really boils down to premeditation. What is premeditation? Well, it's a conscious decision, a choice to engage in murder. The court told you already that it need not exist for any definite period of time. Not an hour, not a day, not a minute, not even a second. And as we talk about premeditation, I'm showing you what's already been admitted into evidence as Exhibit 129. It's a video, you've seen it, and I think it bears seeing again. But not for the reason that you're thinking. It's 5:59 p.m. on the 23rd of November, 2023. You can see on the screen Mr. Jason Chen wheeling this suitcase towards his Toyota Camry in preparation for driving to Suck Creek Road and dumping Jasmine Pace to sit until found by law enforcement on December the 1st. The video stops here. We've all approached a traffic light. The light was turned yellow. You can see it here. As someone approaches this traffic light, they have a choice. You step on the gas, or you step on the brakes. You consider, what time of day is it? Are there pedestrians? What's the traffic look like? Are you running late? Is there a need to get where you're going quickly? All things that your mind processes in an instant. You make the conscious choice to either hit the brake pedal or to go hammer down. And as we'll see, silver car, when faced with that decision, just like Mr. Chen, accelerated, kept going, didn't stop. I want you to keep that in mind as we start going through the proof. What opportunities did Mr. Chen have during this to take the off-ramp away from violence, away from murder, away from 60 stab wounds? And it's important to know the timeline. And how long does it take to choose to kill Miss Jasmine Pace? Mere seconds. Our story starts at 11:27 p.m. when Miss Jasmine Pace leaves her parents' house. You've seen the pictures of it. She drives from her residence to Jason Chen's apartment at 110 Tremont Street. We can see her arriving at 11:42. A minute before, her My Chevy app shows that her ignition turns off in her car. And people asked in the case in chief, who is the person walking towards the door of the apartment? The state's position is that that's Miss Jasmine Pace. The last time she'd ever be seen alive. Then at 2:11 a.m., the defense called a witness whose name is Courtney Paglino Brewer. She was awoken by a scream. Lasted several seconds, she described. She heard footsteps chasing away from the bedroom towards the front door. She heard a female voice that she described as sad but assertive. And the tail end of an argument is what was said. And then she hears the front door slam to Mr. Chen's apartment. Not the interior door. She told you she knows what the interior door sounds like. She knows what the front doors to the apartment sound like when they slam shut. And it was the front door to the apartment. She hears sounds of walking, but what's very important is she doesn't hear glass breaking, bottles hitting the floor, nothing. 2:15 a.m., Miss Katrina Pace sends a pin of her last location to her mother. Jasmine Pace sends it to Katrina. Now there's two options, sure. But circumstantially, we know that it's Jasmine that sent that message, because there's only two options. It's either Miss Jasmine Pace in a cry for help, letting her family know where she is, or it's Mr. Jason Chen using the phone, sending a message to Katrina Pace, Jasmine's mom. For what purpose? To get caught? We know he doesn't want that to happen, based on everything else that we see after. So by process of elimination, it's Jasmine Pace. At 2:31 a.m., Mr. Chen's downstairs neighbor, Courtney Paglino Brewer, hears a television turn on in Mr. Chen's bedroom. At no point does she describe sounds of toilets flushing, person retching on the floor. No, she hears what? Garbage disposal? Washing machine. That's at 3 a.m., about 1 hour after the murder. We next move forward to 4:04 a.m., about 1 3/4 hours, or 1 hour and 45 minutes after the murder. And what starts happening? Jasmine Pace is dead, but her phone starts springing to life. Exhibit 126 shows at 4:04 through 4:28 a series of messages. I ask for you to compare Exhibit 126 to 139. So what? We scroll over. Mr. Chen has now attempted to access Jasmine Pace's bank accounts. How does he know that? Because he's got her bank card right there. He has unfettered access to her property that she brought with her. Phones, driver's licenses, credit cards. Moving forward to 9:52 a.m., now 7 3/4 hours, or 7 hours and 45 minutes after Miss Jasmine Pace was murdered, we get to Tinder. We get to the Tinder data on Mr. Chen's cell phone. And what does it show? Oops. What's it show? I guess we're dating now. Ask yourselves, is that the mindset of a person who's stricken with grief? Or is it the mindset of somebody who has zero remorse, who does not care, that would take a body, put it in garbage bags, load it into the suitcase, load it into their car, drive it out to the wilderness, and dump it on the side of the road? Which is consistent? Your common sense tells you that it's the latter. Shortly after, at 10:29, we see Mr. Chen emerge from his apartment for the first time on the 23rd. He's wearing a very distinctive hat. Anything goes. This hat's important. Probably wondering, why would we introduce a hat into evidence? It's because, ladies and gentlemen, this is the one article of clothing that through it all never leaves Mr. Chen's person. We can see here on the Arctic video starting at 10:29, Mr. Chen come out of his apartment wearing all black. When he steps into the sunlight, you see the red and white of the Anything Goes hat. See it right there. He then gets into his car, and he goes where? To the Walmart. Curious thing, though, as Mr. Chen rounds the corner of Tremont Street onto Fraser Avenue in the North Shore of Chattanooga, he's by himself. There's no one in the front seat. So what? We can see the Anything Goes hat. We could see Mr. Chen. We could see his car. The so what is that at 10:42 a.m., both his phone and Jasmine Pace's phone arrive at the Red Bank Walmart just a mere minutes away. And what does Mr. Chen do? He goes into the Walmart. We can see him wearing all black in Exhibit 18. Wearing, you guessed it, anything goes. Mr. Chen then selects various items while he's shopping in the Walmart, but not before he sends this. Good morning. Slept like baby. Made myself a matcha. In an attempt to create an alibi, he's not there. He's somewhere else. You must ask yourselves, is that a sick joke? Slept like baby? Sent to the person that you just stabbed 60 times? Is that the conduct of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing? They're just frantic? Or is it methodical? Does it show a desire in their mind to try to divert attention away from themselves? He uses a photograph to place him at Starbucks rather than Walmart, where he's buying cleaning supplies, towels, Band-Aids. He checks out at 11 o'clock a.m. and then immediately goes Sup Creek. The location that Miss Jasmine Pace was ultimately found inside this suitcase being indicated by the red pin with body location in the middle. You can see that he's going to the west and to the south of Sup Creek Road, looking for a good spot. And he found that. He returns home at 12:38, carrying his Walmart bag, wearing his anything goes hat, where he stays for several hours and begins the laborious project that is cleaning up the copious amounts of blood that had been spilled in his apartment. Then at 12:43, after he's been home for just a few minutes, some interesting activity starts on Miss Jasmine Pace's phone. At on the 23rd of November at 12:43 p.m., he starts trying to get into Jasmine's iCloud. Why? Why? So he can have unfettered access to the digital files, so that he can start creating a further alibi, so that he can begin the process of impersonating his victim to make it appear as though she's still alive, to buy time. That's not the conduct of somebody in a frantic panic, doesn't know what they're doing. That is the conduct of somebody who is cold and calculated. We then see Mr. Chen again later that afternoon at 1:36. This is when he takes the trip from his apartment at 110 Tremont Street and goes to Walgreens the first time. You'll note that his appearance has changed. See how he's wearing a light-colored top and black pants? Different than what he was wearing at Walmart, but again, he's wearing his favorite anything goes hat. One of the jury questions was, what is the significance of item 153? Why was it so important to collect a quarter-zip sweatshirt? Most importantly, why was it so important to collect this quarter-zip sweatshirt? As you'll see here in a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, it's got a very distinct look. Mr. Chen will wear a black shirt under it. You'll see very clear that he continues to wear this, including when he eventually goes to dump the body. That's the reason. We'll set this over here next to the anything goes hat. Make a note of the V produced by the opening of the neck beneath the head. We can then see Mr. Chen drive off, again wearing his red hat and his gray hooded sweatshirt. You've seen the videos. Mr. Chen buys what at Walmart or Walgreens? More cleaning supplies. Isopropyl alcohol. He returns home, but leaves again at 2:56 p.m. The purpose of this trip is it's an extended one. He's going to scout Sup Creek Road the second time that day. He's again wearing the gray hooded sweatshirt and the anything goes shirt or hat. But at 4:03 p.m., while he's still out looking for a place to dump Jasmine Pace's body, he sends this message. Hey, are we still good for dinner tonight? A message which shows is read by Jasmine Pace. I remind you where Mr. Chen is at this moment in time. Where the body is found. Again, slept like Davy. I'm still good for tonight. Is that the conduct of somebody who's frantic or someone who's depraved? Then we fast forward to 5:59. You've seen it. Mr. Chen emerges from his apartment with a suitcase. Watch as he tips it over. How heavy it is. Almost pulls him to the ground. Watch as he struggles. Here we go. Tipping it over. See it? Watch as he struggles to go around the corner towards the light post. Right there. Because it's not clothes. He's not going on some trip. It's a person. It's Jasmine Pace. 98 pounds, soaking wet. 5'2" tall. In a rolling suitcase. He then drives past. Again, wearing his anything goes hat, his gray shirt. He heads to Sup Creek, disposes of Jasmine Pace, and goes to Walgreens again. But not before he makes a pit stop. He makes a pit stop at Walgreens. Remember Mark Hamilton, the cell phone forensics expert, when he testified? He said that Jason Chen's indicators were red, Jasmine Pace's were green. Miss Pace, despite actually being on Sup Creek Road in this suitcase in the cold November night, her cell phone in Mr. Chen's possession ends up at Walmart. Why? It reconnects to the network. Why would Mr. Chen do that? Remember that read receipt? He's now turning on strategically his phone and her phone to create instances where it appears as though she's online, but he's nowhere around. His phone goes dark, her phone turns on. Her phone goes dark, his phone turns on. It's manipulation of digital evidence to try to distance himself from the fact that he's disposing of the body. And we know this because at 6:49 p.m., Miss Jasmine Pace's cell phone with the IMEI number disappears. It's off the network. SIM card is out of the phone. The SIM card that's in evidence in 167-2. SIM card which was extracted and shown to belong to Miss Jasmine Pace. The defendant enters the Walgreens, again wearing this gray hoodie, completely zipped down, large V on the neck, with a black shirt under it, white shoes, and his ever-present anything goes hat. He heads home, but he's got a problem. He got rid of the body, but there's another big piece of evidence sitting in the parking lot of his apartment. Miss Jasmine Pace's car. So, at 8:26 p.m., he dons a disguise. Think about it. You've now seen his goings and comings at Walgreens, Walmart, the Arctic videos. Does he ever wear a face mask? No. He wears the face mask because he knows where Jasmine's car is located. It's right next to this room. But he knows that that room has a ring camera. You've got all the ring videos and evidence, which predate November the 23rd. You can see him looking at it. He knows it's there. So he's got to hide his appearance. Again, to try to cover up his misdeeds. Ms. Pace's car then at 8:27, 1 minute after the ring video, car starts up and we have hard acceleration twice during a trip from 110 Tremont Street to 900 Mountain Creek Road. Why? The state would tender that it's because he's not familiar with this vehicle. He doesn't know how it drives. He doesn't know how the accelerator works. And we can see him in his disguise, hood up, blue surgical mask, driving Jasmine Pace's car. He does drop it off at 900 Mountain Creek Road. You've seen that happen. You've then also seen the ride share come and pick him up 9 minutes, 8 minutes after 8:41 p.m. And then you've also seen this. Oops. Jason Chen getting out of the car, wearing his plaid shirt over his white hoodie. The white hoodie in Exhibit 152. Exhibit 143, this plaid shirt. And he goes into his apartment. Now, how might somebody who's upset about what they have done react? How? I can tell you what Mr. Chen did. Less than 1 day after stabbing a girl 60 times in his apartment, 6 hours after taking a body and throwing it on the side of the road, Mr. Chen says to his buddies, "I'm getting on in like 5 minutes." The entire conversation is there. They're talking about playing video games. It says COD, Call of Duty. after engaging in actual physical violence, he goes online to get some more. Then we fast forward a couple of days, and Mr. Chen does something somewhat unexplainable. He takes Jasmine Pace's cell phone, takes his cell phone, removes the SIM card from his phone, and puts it into Jasmine's. And he begins his cell phone data from T-Mobile, Exhibit 136, shows that where he had been using an iPhone XR, he now starts using Jasmine Pace's phone. Again, why? Because he now will have unfettered access to all of her social medias. He can start posing as her more effectively, communicating with the family, giving the impression that she's not dead so that they don't come looking for her to buy more time to clean up his apartment. So let's talk about the crimes themselves now that we have the timeline down. Abuse of a corpse, as the court has instructed you, is treating a body in a manner that offends the sensibilities of an ordinary person. Wrapping a person in 3 garbage bags, putting them in a suitcase, driving them out into the wilderness to unceremoniously plop them on the side of the road on an embankment down by a river is offensive. Plain and simple. No reasonable person thinks that's acceptable. Especially once you know that the family's looking for her. Sure, he dumps the body on the 23rd, but when the family's looking for him, mum's the word. In fact, even after the family breaks into the apartment looking for her, nothing. First-degree murder. In order to convict the defendant in this case, you have to find several things. First, the venue that this crime happened in Hamilton County. You heard the testimony of multiple witnesses. Mr. Chen's apartment, 110 Tremont Street, specifically apartment 210, is located on the North Shore community of the city of Chattanooga. Chattanooga is in Hamilton County. We have proven venue. Next, we have to show that Jason Chen is the person who committed the crime of murder. Next, we have 3 elements. That Jason Chen unlawfully killed Jasmine Pace, that he did it intentionally, and he did it with premeditation. Again, going back over venue, you've seen it, you have a map of it. North Chattanooga. We've kind of gone over this a little bit, but I do think it's important to point out because it goes directly to the heart of identity. You can see it in Exhibit 129, 21, 129, and when you watch Exhibit 129, the Arctic video, you'll see it yet again, especially the black, dark V-neck right there. That's Mr. Chen pulling that suitcase. The suitcase that contained Jasmine Pace's body. So we can point out all the similarities. It's like a fingerprint. He's got his anything goes hat, his black shirt under his zip top with his black pants and his white man's shoes. Oh, which are in evidence as well. Exhibit 157. We know that this is Mr. Chen and not some other individual wearing a anything goes hat with a black shirt and a quarter zip because when he enters the Walgreens and buys some Bounty paper towels, he uses a credit card. That credit card has numbers on it. Those numbers match the wallet collected from his Nolensville residence, where he was staying with his parents. And you'll see that it's a match. Furthermore, the garbage bags that contained Jasmine Pace's body that were found inside this suitcase have not one, but two different fingerprints belonging to Mr. Chen. We also heard from Detective Crawford during his direct examination about slippage injuries to Mr. Chen's hands. All of that circumstantially shows that Mr. Chen is the same person that we see on the videos, is the same person in possession of the physical evidence in this case. So let's talk about intentional. 60 stab wounds. 60. Not one, not two, not four, not 20, not 30, not 45, 60 individual stab and incised wounds were on Jasmine Pace's body at the time she was examined by the medical examiner's office. That means stab, action 1. Removing, action 2. Each stab in and of itself consists of 2 distinct movements. The movement plunging the knife blade in and the movement removing the knife blade out. Back in, out 120. 120 times. He had to move his body to be able to inflict the number of injuries that we see on Jasmine Pace's body. Dr. Cogswell, our medical examiner for Hamilton County, opined that the cause of death was multiple stab and incise wounds. So let's talk more specifically about the premeditation in this case. Using the understanding that we had earlier regarding the example with the traffic light, that it can be formed in an instant, there's evidence of preparation, the number of injuries inflicted upon Ms. Pace, as well as his conduct after the fact, all show that this was not some act of somebody who didn't know what they were doing, but somebody that had a plan, carried it out, and carried it out well. You've got to ask yourself, if Ms. Jasmine Pace is in the fetal position, if she wasn't moving, like the medical examiner told you, if the incised wounds are on her left arm, right shoulder, no significant injuries further down, head and neck, but only on the right side, the chin and the eye, what does that tell us? What about the lack of stab and incise wounds to the left side of the body? What about the lack of stab and incise wounds to the front of her body? What does that tell us? It tells us several things. Oh, excuse me.
I got on no source.
Beg your pardon, Your Honor?
I got on no source, so let me know when you're ready. I'll remind the media of the court's admonition not to broadcast graphic images.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Austin, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I warned the audience, I warned the media. It's consistent with Jasmine Pace being found when she's being stabbed. If someone were stabbing a person 60 times, we would expect them to try to get away. But what if they can't? What if they can't because their right hand is chained to their right leg, their left leg chained to their right elbow? Makes it difficult to run. Makes it difficult to do anything. Dr. Cogswell told you that she was stabbed in the fetal position 60 times. We'd also expect that if she's being attacked on the right side of her body, that she might try to defend herself with both hands. There should be injuries on both hands. Instead, what we have are injuries to the left hand, no significant injuries to the right hand. That's consistent with her being in the fetal position with a hand unable to move on the ground. It's consistent with exactly what we see on the screen right there, her being handcuffed. We also see additional injuries on Ms. Pace at the time of autopsy. We don't know what caused them. We can't tell you. But what they are consistent with, according to Dr. Cogswell, is the application of pressure of some kind of throat, the application of a large amount of force to the rib cage, and some bruising to the nose right next to the right eye. And we also have bruising to her right arm. Let's talk about the restraints for a minute. The handcuffs and the shackles. The primary interest are these shackles. The defense insinuates that the shackles were not placed on Ms. Pace before the stabbing took place. Why? Because if you shackle somebody and then stab them, well, that's taking a step to accomplish what you do. You're confining somebody, you're making it easier to stab, but there's a problem with that. Dr. Cogswell told you that dead people don't move. Right? Makes sense. Don't know that it would require a medical expert to say that, but it is a truth. These are the shackles. Ankle, arm, connected at the elbow. Why would Jason Chen take the time to apply a set of broken shackles to somebody? He wouldn't. But dead bodies don't move. You know what do move? Somebody that you're trying to stab 60 times. They don't move much if they're shackled. They don't move much if their right hand is handcuffed to the inside of their right ankle. But ask yourselves, why did the handcuffs not break? Well, you get a whole lot of momentum. Your leg and your hand are tied together. You can't really kick because you can only go as far with your leg as you can with your arm. But guess what you can do with these shackles? You've got more length to work with to build up momentum and snap the chain. Not enough for Miss Pace to get away. No. Not enough for her to get away. She had two sets of restraints keeping her right arm down there so she couldn't fight back with her right hand. Only with her left. You can see it right there. It's broken because Jasmine Pace fought back. It's broken that because when Jason Chen put those cuffs on her, she tried to get away, but was only to break free with one set. Couldn't break from the second. That's all it took. That's all it took to keep her in one place so that he could inflict a total of 60 stab and incise wounds on her little body. That's all it took. Having her in the fetal position with one arm chained to her right leg on the inside. And let's think about it. Why on the inside? Why not the outside? If it is, as the defense would have you believe, that Jasmine Pace was cuffed up while she was dead, right? Why on earth would they apply one shackle to the elbow and the other one to the left leg? She's not moving. She's not going anywhere. You'd make it so that it matches, right? You want her to be in as tight of a package as possible to fit into this teeny little suitcase that's not designed to hold a person. She's not moving. Cuff the hands together, shackle the two legs together, and pull them together. You wouldn't go haphazard, right hand to right leg, and then attach a cuff here and attach the shackle to the left leg. That's indicative of she doesn't want to be shackled. He's just slapping the shackles on whatever he can find, whatever he can get his hands on. It's been insinuated that this was a crime of passion. Chen blacked out, didn't know what he was doing. 60 stabs, wakes up, what have I done? I want you to remember something. Dr. Cogswell told you that the injuries inflicted on Miss Pace, Jasmine, were from two categories: antemortem, paramortem. He emphatically said, I found no evidence of postmortem injuries. Remember that testimony? You mean that a crazed individual who doesn't know what they're doing knows the precise moment to stop stabbing? Or would somebody who's acting under some kind of a passion that just keeps stabbing, they would keep going after they're dead? He used the precise amount of force necessary to accomplish his goal, and then he stopped. That's evidence of premeditation. It shows that he knows what he's doing. It shows that he's in control of his actions. And we can see it there in 204:11. That's a paramortem. I want you to think about it. If you're stabbing somebody and you've slit their throat, severed their jugular, the epiglottis, so that she's now inhaling and choking on her own blood, aspirating it into the lungs, creating that, I think it was leopard print pattern, cheetah print, I forget. But the pattern inside the lungs, that's not a quick death. It's not an instant kill. Remember the questions were asked of Dr. Cogswell? That would immediately incapacitate her, wouldn't it, doctor? Not necessarily. So then you move on to somewhere else, another vital organ. The lung. The head. But you want to know what happened with the lung? The knife blade broke off. It made his job much more difficult. We know that some of the wounds, like the through and through of her hand, the through and through of her neck, and the one that broke off in her back, all had to happen ante-mortem with the knife blade still intact. But what we do know is that not all of them came after she was dead. What are the odds? And during Dr. Cogswell's testimony, there was a question from the jury, and it was a good question, a very good question. How many of them, of the wounds that you saw, were downward? But remember, Dr. Cogswell always talks and describes in standard anatomical position. Up means towards the head. Down means towards the soles of the feet. Right means towards the victim's right hand. And left means towards the victim's left hand. Front, the front of her body. Back, the back of the body. But remember what Dr. Cogswell also said, that he believed that she was in the fetal position, which could be accomplished in only two ways. Standing on the flat of her feet like this, or on her side on the ground. And if we're talking about on her side on the ground, the standard anatomical positioning gets tricky. You'll have the autopsy report back there. And a question was asked, were any of them upward? Any of the wounds indicating upward? And that doesn't necessarily mean up towards the sky. It just means, for instance, in this case, an oblique stab wound on the right web of the neck penetrating upward through muscle only is generally in that direction. So as you read the autopsy report, remember, upward doesn't necessarily mean that she was standing. What it could indicate is that she's on the ground. It's just the knife's angled, traveling from one direction to the other. Now, we've already talked about this, but after he stabs Miss Jasmine Pace, after he disposes of her body, he's disguising his appearance. That's a higher level function of Mr. Chen's brain. He is thinking about, I don't want to get caught, so what can I do to avoid detection? He's got to clean his apartment, which he's already started doing, but how can I not be recognized when I'm going out disposing of various pieces of evidence? So he disguises himself. And just if there's any doubt, on the bed, this hoodie was collected. You can see it's stark white pull tabs. And this shirt. When you watch the video frame by frame, you can see the pattern. And it's a match. Being left in the crime scene. Another interesting thing that he does is he starts changing his habits. When you see him check out at Walgreens, when you see him check out at Walmart, when you see him running around, he's using his phone as his wallet. But, inexplicably, when he gets to Nolensville, his phone, which he uses as his wallet, is now inside a red jewelry box in a bedroom. And he's transitioned to an actual physical wallet that heretofore on the videos you've not seen. Why? Because he's concerned he's now being tracked. He can't take his phone with him, or it might give away where he is. And he stages the scene. We know he stages the scene based upon the physical evidence. The giant saturation stain on the left side of the bed, on the north wall of the bedroom. The oil stains along the east wall. But when law enforcement arrive, his bed has moved. It's now up against the north wall, covering up the stain. Don't forget, Exhibit 72, crime scene photograph, shows indentations in the carpet consistent with an item having been recently moved. What item? Well, there's a nightstand that's the same general shape in the corner next to the bed. Also, in Exhibit 117, you can see Mr. Chen with his bed very clearly centered on the east wall. Why would he move his bed? To cover up the large blood stain on the carpet, where Miss Jasmine Pace, to quote Dr. Cogswell, leaked. This is circumstantial evidence, personified. Do you see the black stain on the right side of the left shoe? It's right there. Go through the crime scene photos. He likes Vans. It's a pink pair, got another white pair, in boxes. Where's the rest of the knife? Never been found. We don't know where it is because Mr. Jason Chen, after stabbing Jasmine Pace, disposed of that too. And obviously we've already talked about this, the body. We've also talked about the manipulation of digital evidence. Everything he does is calm, it's collected, but most importantly, it's rational. Everything he does is to a point, and that's to escape capture. Everything he does leading up to the attack by shackling and restraining Jasmine Pace is to make it easier to accomplish the act itself. That is premeditation. It doesn't matter that he didn't have it written down on some sheet of paper. Today will be the day that I kill Jasmine Pace. All that matters is he took steps to commit the murder. He committed the murder. And during the commission of the murder, you mean to tell me that during any one of those 60 stabs, he never once thought, I should stop? No. Like the car approaching the yellow light, it was hammered down. Keep going. Don't stop. The defense's theory is that this all happened in the bedroom. This was been insinuated. They're expert. Something big happened in the bedroom. The defense postulates that the blood in the bathroom is because Mr. Chen crawled on the floor and took a shirt off. That's how the blood got there. Remember that question being postulated to the defense expert? It's possible. Is it reasonable? We'll talk about it. Their own expert described the collection of evidence as he was testifying on direct examination yesterday. CPD, crime scene, did a good job collecting things with the knowledge that they had going on. Their own expert said that. I didn't ask that question. He just offered it to you. That was his opinion, unsolicited. He talks about crime scene contamination and how footprints through blood can move blood from one part of the apartment to the other. But he then, on cross-examination, admits that in order for there to be blood soaked through the grout, it has to be a large volume, sitting there for a while. Right? You mean to tell me that when the Pace family conducted their frantic searches of Mr. Chen's apartment, you mean to tell me that when the Chattanooga Police Patrol officers walked through, they trampled through enough blood to soak through grout and produce that pattern on the underside? That's unbelievable. It's incredible, and it's unreasonable. Now, he did tell you that what we have here in Exhibit 179-6 is an impact mark. Remember his testimony about that? That you can infer the direction based upon the angle of the tail of the blood drop, that as it impacts the surface, it creates kind of a teardrop shape with a little dot. See the little dot? And then from that, you can infer the direction from which the blood came. And in this case, he agreed. When shown this photograph, 179-1, that where the blood came from that's over 6 feet off the ground was, lo and behold, the red area outlined here in the bathroom, not the bedroom. He also is of the opinion that despite the blue star lighting up like this, that's just transfer. Even though that's in the same room where we see the impact mark with direction indicated. His opinion is that the attack happened in the bedroom and that this is the result of massive bleeding. He says that he could see in these photographs that there are scuffs on the wall, and that's indicative of something happening there. Remember that testimony? Scuffs on the wall. He tells you that he can't see drag marks, but he did recognize a blood trail going from the bathroom past number 6 under the bed to the large saturation stain that we saw in the preceding photograph. He also tells you that he could see in his photo what he believes to be 3 fingers. I don't know about your fingers, but when we put that picture up on the projector, I ask you to agree fingers aren't in a straight line. How perfectly straight were those lines of the fingers? I ask, isn't it possible that it was the folding of the sheet over on top of each other and a transfer in that manner, not a fingerprint? He couldn't say. In light of all of that, counsel asks, would that blood have been transferred by Jason? I don't see how it would have. Remember, he was asked about the attack and would that have created a large volume of blood, a large amount of blood? And he said, yes, it would have gotten everywhere. Jason's arms, his chest, his shirt, even the back of his head. Well, if that's the case, remember what Dr. Cogswell said when he was describing the position of Jasmine Pace's body on the large carpet. He said that her head, when we had it splayed out here on the floor, and remember the 2 straight corners, north wall, east wall, north wall, east wall, okay? Head was here, posterior, buttocks here, legs tucked up. Remember that explanation? If that's the case, well, that's not much room in which to stab someone 60 times, is it? It's also curious. How would you be positioned to be able to even inflict those wounds in that little area? It's not reasonable. The explanation makes absolutely no sense. I mean, don't forget, it's an attack that literally broke the knife blade off. A violent attack, creating blood that would have covered both the victim and Jason Chen. But ask yourselves, if that headboard was up against the wall, meaning this is the side of the bed exposed to that violent exchange, where's all the blood? All we have are these little red spots. A couple small little transfers. Where's the blood on the maroon sheet that was pulled all the way down? Ask yourselves, if the attack severed the ulnar artery on the hand that's free, you mean to tell me that Dr. Cogswell, who described arterial bleeds as spurting, that there's not blood everywhere, just in a little puddle? Where's the blood? On the floor, no doubt. We'll agree to that. bed, the wall, door frame, the molding. Where's the blood? Dr. Cogswell told you in his testimony, follow the blood. And it just doesn't follow. Here's the sheet. If Miss Jasmine Pace was stabbed 60 times within a foot or so of this bed and that sheet, in the manner described by Dr. Cogswell and their own crime scene expert, it would be soaked. But it's not. All we can see are some red stains in the carpet. Rather, ladies and gentlemen, the proof in this case, the scientific proof, even the testimony of the defense's own witness, Mr. Lawrence, establishes that the more violent, aggressive, physically impressive acts occurred in this room, the bathroom, in that area right there. I want you to think about this. In order to soak through the grout that we see in the preceding photographs, that would have required a large puddle for an extended period of time. The blood stain at Exhibit 6 is consistent with blood running off the end of the tile and beginning to soak into the carpet. No doubt the defense expert is correct. Carpet is absorbent. And it started wicking the blood off of the tile floor before Mr. Chen had an opportunity to soak it up. Whose blood? TBI tested it. It's Jasmine Pace's blood. Jasmine Pace's blood found on the threshold in the transition from the bedroom to the bathroom. The impact marks lead back to the large puddle of blood, to the large puddle of Jasmine Pace's blood. And oh, by the way, 159.12 and 159.13, remember he said there's an impact mark on the threshold of the door in the bedroom, and it ran down and then puddled a little bit? That blood will do that. It'll impact, it'll drip, and then it will stop. It'll stop that on the bathroom. But hey, it didn't happen there. That's what their expert thinks. Despite the fact that the bathroom lights up like this, he says it's all contamination. That's his opinion. All of this is contamination. He said it over and over and over and over again. Contamination, contamination, contamination. Everybody's contaminating. I'm contaminating. Everyone's contaminating. You want to know where the Paces, the police, the crime scene units aren't walking with their feet? How about the doors? It's not contamination. That's Jasmine Pace's blood, because that's where Jasmine Pace was murdered. Further proof of a cleanup as if you need it. He's buying paper towels. He's buying cleaning supplies. And yet the only thing that we can find, despite Mr. Lawrence, a nice gentleman, okay, saying that Mr. Chen didn't do a thorough cleanup job, yes, he did. All we have are blood and grout and a discoloration stain from where she was brutally murdered by Mr. Jason Chen. Further proof of it. Further stains in the grout. Let's talk about voluntary manslaughter. Defense has said provocation. Provocation, provocation, provocation. Based on what evidence? Courtney Paglino Brewer said she heard him argue. You've seen an awful lot of arguing in this courtroom over the course of this trial. An argument is not an excuse to murder somebody. Just because you have a disagreement with somebody and they're yelling, that's not adequate provocation to lead an otherwise reasonable person to act in an irrational manner. Mr. Chen is always a rational person in everything he does, whether it's posing as the victim online, whether it's sending the family messages, whether it's turning her phone on and off, whether it's using her phone to try to hide his activities. Everything's with a purpose, including chaining her up. There's been absolutely no evidence other than there was a disagreement. She sounded sad. The female voice sounded sad but assertive. And she screamed. It's not provocation. It's a nothing. She's not there. What would cause a reasonable person to act unreasonable? It was posited earlier that it was a wine glass. Where Ms. Brewer didn't hear crashing. She didn't hear breaking. All she heard was running away from the back of the apartment towards the front. Is that consistent with the story that we were told earlier? No, it's not. It's consistent with Ms. Jasmine Pace trying to get away, being stopped, being restrained, and then being murdered in the room that, guess what, is in between the bedroom and the front door. Mr. Chen was able to stop her before she got out, and that's where he handcuffed her, and that's where he started stabbing her. Did she bleed a lot in the bedroom? Absolutely. Absolutely. But even when you were shown the carpet with the giant saturation stain, you can't say that's Jasmine Pace. You remember that question being asked over and over? Then whose is it? Every explanation that has been given for Mr. Chen's conduct up until this point has been disproven. Remember, don't forget, ding ding. Ding ding. Ding ding. That's what set Jasmine off. But you've seen the tender records. And it's not there. What this shows is a person who may have had an aggressive emotion during the attack, no doubt. Every murder is aggressive. Every murder is emotional. That doesn't mean that it was provoked. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chen unlawfully killed Ms. Pace. He acted intentionally. The number of wounds, his restraining the victim before the attack, his conduct after all shows calm reflection on the task at hand. And that's why he's guilty of first-degree murder. Go find him guilty for snuffing out Ms. Jasmine Pace's life on the 23rd of November, 2022, at 2 o'clock in the morning.